This is coming from theguardian.com, but of course it is showing up everywhere. The headline, Sweden and Finland make moves to join NATO. Sweden's ruling party has begun debating whether the country should join NATO, and neighboring Finland expects to reach a decision within weeks, as Moscow warned that the Nordic nations' accession would, quote, not bring stability to Europe. A veiled or not so veiled threat there by Putin. Both countries are officially non-aligned militarily, but public support for NATO membership has almost doubled since Russia's invasion of Ukraine, to about 50% in Sweden and 60% in Finland. Multiple opinion polls suggest Sweden's center-left Social Democrats, led by Prime Minister Magdalena Andersson, said their security review was about more than just joining the 30-nation alliance, adding that the party could decide to apply even without the backing of members. Having stressed at the outbreak of the war that non-alignment had served Sweden's interests well, Andersson said she was ready to discuss the policy in light of Moscow's aggression, and in late March said she, quote, did not rule out joining NATO. Quote, when Russia invaded Ukraine, Sweden's security position changed fundamentally. The party said it was in a statement on Monday. The Social Democrat General Secretary Tobias Bodin said the security review would be complete, quote, before the summer. The question is expected to be a key issue in parliamentary elections due on the 11th of September.
Interesting date.
Interesting connection. Now, here it goes even deeper, Gonz. Finland, which shares a 830-mile border with Russia and, like Sweden, is a NATO partner after abandoning its position of strict neutrality at the end of the Cold War, is expected to outline its decision regarding the alliance before midsummer.
Build a wall!
And it goes it goes on and on and on. Now, there is one little detail here. Both countries have received public assurances from the NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg that their application would be welcome, as well as expressions of support from several members, including the US, UK, Germany, France, and Turkey. But the move would almost certainly be seen as a provocation by the Kremlin, whose spokesperson Dmitry Peskov said on Monday that the alliance was, quote, a tool geared towards confrontation, and that their possible accession, quote, will not bring stability to Europe, the European continent. So, fun little detail. I'm just going to break it down quick for you, Gonz. There are currently 30 members of NATO, which is more or less the anti-Soviet Union collection of countries in Europe and other Atlantic countries like the U.S. There are currently 30 members. If we add Sweden and we add Finland, which looks almost certain, I mean, the signs are pointing that if they just slightly nod their head, perhaps even on accident, that they will just suddenly be within the NATO alliance, that would bring it to 32 nation states as members, which would leave, just leaves us so close to the perfect messaging number of we do and do not know who. And that begs the question, Gonzo, who would be the 33rd member of NATO? And
is it Ukraine?
Could it possibly be Ukraine? You know, I think it's interesting that, of course, we've been playing with the idea. We being, I don't know, not you and I, but Biden, other NATO members, world leaders, they've been courting Ukraine for NATO membership for a while, which is one of the precipitating factors to the entire war that's going on now, no matter how much CNN wants you to know that or think that this was an unprovoked aggression by Russia. But I don't think that Ukraine can join NATO until they are the 33rd member. It all come together.
Is the number of completion of the Great War.
Of course, it comes together. And by the way, 33 comes up again later on today. It's a theme
all
that
over the place, baby.
Yeah, So
messaging is strong. And so I think we can see where this is going. I think we can see just how seriously and deeply this plan has been, pondered and strategized. And the timing is everything.
Yeah.
They said that Finland and Sweden would join this year sometime. But the fact that this would bring the border of Russia against, their total border length with NATO, which is, again, sort of implicitly and explicitly an anti-Soviet / anti-Russia alliance, it would bring the border of NATO and Russia to a little over 1,500 miles. I mean, it's an enormous border. And then Ukraine, of course, would just be the nail in the coffin. There's basically Russia's entire western border would be right up against an explicit military enemy.
Yeah.
And that makes Putin a little bit nervous, I think.
I think it's pretty clear where the exact tension points of the East versus West World War III is going to be brought about, obviously, the Ukraine thing. And, it's interesting. I will get into some other topics that also brings up the NBA. The NBA being a very useful tool, the National Basketball Association, for the elite when it comes to different kinds of signaling. But with COVID, it was the big shutdown of the NBA that really caused the beginning of the major lockdowns with everything. But one of the things the NBA does during their All-Star, they've been doing this for a few years, where they pick captains from the East and West of it's the United States / Canada. There's an Eastern Conference and a Western Conference. Each conference gets a team leader, and they do this thing where it's kind of like a playground. They pick teams, Yeah. And I feel like that's what we're doing right now. 2022 is like, all right, World War III, coming to you live in 2023. 2022 is a year to pick teams, and everyone's just kind of picking sides. It's the NATO side and the China-Russia alliance side, So it's just very interesting how it's all, people are just picking sides. So you got to have the tension point. You got to have the teams before we can have the match. And
it's interesting, too. You think about how the teams are already sort of divided up. Mm-hmm. You've basically got Russia and China on one side, and India is kind of playing with, right now, India is leaning in that direction. But besides that, maybe some Middle Eastern countries will have to figure out where they stand.
That's what's interesting. Yeah,
real quick. Right. The last players standing in line, ready to be chosen, considering their options, is Africa. Mm-hmm. Again, and Antarctica.
And Antarctica by extension.
We'll see what happens. Yeah. But Africa being like the key available players. And that's why I kind of think that as we've reported on and discussed and analyzed over the past couple episodes, Russia and China being very aggressive and very generous in their courting of the African continent, I could see it going that direction.
Yeah, that sounds about right. And we'll have to see what happens in the Middle East. And the Middle East is especially Israel. There's a lot of interesting sort of.
They've been holding their neutrality too.
Yeah, so we'll see. I guess it's it's for places like Israel. It's like the highest bidder, right?
Mm-hmm.
whoever can benefit Israel the most is going to win the bid. So it's just interesting to watch.
And to be fair, Africa is the same way.
Same way.
The U.S., the West has abused Africa for so long, economically and politically. But China's been doing the same thing. So they're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place.
Yeah.
And with that, I do want to give one more update going on in Russia. I found really fascinating as it pertains to the future of warfare, the future of alignments, and the future. It's all wrapped up in social justice and privacy, and more than anything, the corporate lizard overlords, again, taking their place at the table as almost a war-fighting battlefield.